Matteo Renzi is an Italian politician who has been Prime Minister of Italy since February 22, 2014, President of the Council of the European Union since July 1, 2014 and the Secretary of the Democratic Party since December 15, 2013. He was previously the President of Florence Province from 2004 to 2009 and the Mayor of Florence from 2009 to 2014. At the age of 39, Renzi overtook Benito Mussolini's record as the youngest person to become Prime Minister of Italy since unification in 1861. He is also the first to be elected Prime Minister as a mayor. Early life: Renzi was born in Florence, Tuscany. The second of 4 children, his father, Tiziano Renzi, was a Christian Democratic municipal councillor in Rignano Salerno. Renzi grew up in Rignano Salerno, but he studied in Florence at the Classical Lyceum Dante Alighieri. During this time he was a scout in the Association of Catholic Guides and Scouts of Italy. In 1999 he graduated from the University of Florence with a degree in law, having written his thesis on Giorgio La Pira, the former Christian Democratic mayor of Florence. He then went on to work for the CHILSRL, a marketing company owned by his family coordinating the sales service of the newspaper La Nazione. Before entering politics, Renzi was also a football referee in amateur levels and a futsal player. In 1994, he participated as a competitor for 5 consecutive episodes in the television program Wheel of Fortune hosted by Mike Bongiorno, winning €48 million. Early political career: Renzi's interest in politics began in high school. In 1996 he was one of the founders of the committee in support of Romano Prodi's candidature as Prime Minister in the general election. That same year he joined the Italian People's Party, and became its provincial secretary in 1999. In the same year he married Agnese Landini, with whom he had 3 children. In 2001 he joined Francesco Rutelli's The Daisy Party, composed by members of the disbanded People's Party. On June 13, 2004 he was elected President of the Province of Florence, with 59% of the vote, as the candidate of the centre-left coalition. In the years as President of the province, Renzi expressed his ideas against the political caste, and during his mandate he succeeded in reducing taxes and decreasing the number of province's employees and managers. Mayor of Florence: after 5 years as the President of the Province Florence, Renzi announced that he would seek election as the Mayor of Florence. On June 9, 2009, Renzi, by now a member of the Democratic Party, won the election with 48% of the vote, compared to 32% for Giovanni Galli. As mayor he halved the number of city councillors, installed 500 free Wi-Fi access points across the city, reduced kindergarten waiting lists by 90%, and increased spending on social welfare programs and schools. 1 year after being sworn in as mayor, and with his popularity in national opinion polls increasing, Renzi organized a public meeting with another young party administrator Deborah Serracchiani at the Leopolda station in Florence to discuss Italian politics, after stating that a complete change was also necessary in his party. Others prominent Democratic Party members who aligned themselves with Renzi's program were Matteo Renzi, President of the Regional Council of Emilia-Romagna, Davide Farallone, a regional councillor from the Sicilian Regional Assembly, and Giuseppe Savati, a prominent member of the Democratic Party in Lombardy and member of the Lombard Regional Council. Following this public meeting, the Italian media gave Renzi the nickname Il Rottamatore, or the Scrapper. In 2011, he organized a second meeting, also in Florence, where he wrote down 100 topics of discussion. During this time he began to be strongly criticized by other members of his party closer to the then-Secretary Pierluigi Bersani, after his suggestion that Italian politicians of the same generation as then-Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi should retire. In September 2012, Renzi announced that he would seek to lead the centre-left coalition in the 2013 general election. The other 4 candidates were Pierluigi Bersani, Secretary of the Democratic Party, Nichi Vendola, leader of the Left Ecology Freedom, Laura Puppato, a Democratic deputy from Veneto, and Bruno Tarbicchi, leader of the Democratic Centre. After the first round of the December election, Renzi gained 35.5% of the vote, finishing second behind Bersani and qualifying for the second ballot. Renzi eventually gained a total of 39% of the vote, against Bersani's 61%. During the subsequent campaign in the 2013 election in March, Renzi backed Bersani by organizing large public rallies in Florence, but come the election the Democratic Party only gained 25.5% of the vote, despite opinion polls placing the party at almost 30%. In April during the elections for the President of the Republic, Renzi caused a minor controversy by openly criticizing the candidacies of both Franco Marini and Anna Finocchiaro, two long-standing members of his Democratic Party. Party Secretary. Following the resignation of Pierluigi Bersani in April 2013, Renzi stood a second time for the position of Secretary of the Democratic Party. He was supported by a number of his former political opponents, such as former party secretaries Walter Veltroni and Dario Franceschini, Deputy Marina Serini, MEP David Sassoli and Turin Mayor Piero Fassino. Other supporters of his included deputies like Gianni Dal Moro, Francesco Sanna, Francesco Borchia, Lorenzo Basso and Enrico Borfai, all of whom were considered close to Prime Minister Enrico Letta. The other two candidates for party secretary were Gianni Cuplo, member of the Chamber of Deputies and former secretary of the Italian Communist Youth Federation, and Giuseppe Savati, a deputy from Lombardy and former supporter of Renzi's. In the December primary election, Renzi was elected with 68% of the popular vote, compared to 18% for Gianni Cuplo and 14% for Giuseppe Savati. He therefore became the new Secretary of the Democratic Party and the centre-left's prospective candidate for Prime Minister. Throughout January and February 2014 there were multiple reports of persistent leadership tensions between Renzi and Prime Minister Enrico Letta, who had been the Deputy Secretary under Bersani, with many claiming that Renzi was pressuring Letta to resign in his favour. On February 12 Letta publicly demanded that Renzi make his position clear, and Renzi subsequently called a meeting of the Democratic Party leadership for the following evening. Just before the meeting took place, Renzi publicly called on Letta to resign and allow him to form a new government. Letta initially resisted the demand, but following a vote on Renzi's proposal during the meeting, which Letta did not attend, he announced that he would tender his resignation as Prime Minister on February 14. Under Renzi's leadership, the Democratic Party officially joined the Party of European Socialists as a full-time member on February 28. Prime Minister. On February 13, 2014, following tensions between Prime Minister Enrico Letta and Renzi, Letta announced that he would resign as Prime Minister the following day. The Democratic Party leadership voted heavily in favor of backing Renzi's call for a new government, a new phase and a radical program of reform. Minutes after the party backed the Renzi proposal by 136 votes to 16, with 2 abstentions, Palazzo Chigi, the official residence of the Prime Minister, announced that Letta would be going to the Quirinale on Friday to tender his resignation to President Giorgio Napolitano. In an earlier speech, Renzi had paid tribute to Letta, saying the meeting was not intended to put him on trial. But, without directly proposing himself as the next Prime Minister, he said the Eurozone's third-largest economy urgently needed a new phase and radical program to push through badly needed reforms. The motion he put forward made clear the necessity and urgency of opening a new phase with a new executive. Speaking to party leaders, Renzi said Italy was at a crossroads, and faced either holding fresh elections or a new government without a return to the polls. On February 14, President Napolitano accepted Letta's resignation from the office of Prime Minister. Following Letta's resignation, Renzi formally received the task of forming a new government from President Napolitano on February 17. Renzi held several days of talks with party leaders, all of which he broadcast live on the Internet, before unveiling his cabinet on February 21, which contained members of his Democratic Party, the New Centre-Right, the Union of the Centre and the Civic Choice. His cabinet is Italy's youngest government to date, with an average age of 47. In addition, it is also the first in which the number of female ministers is equal to the number of male ministers, excluding the Prime Minister. The following day Renzi was sworn in as Prime Minister, becoming the youngest Prime Minister in the history of Italy. His rise to become Prime Minister was widely seen as a sign of much-needed generational change, and at the time he took office he enjoyed by far the highest approval rating of any politician in the country. On February 25 the government won the vote of confidence with 169 votes in the Senate and 378 in the Chamber of Deputies. Domestic policy. On March 11, the Chamber of Deputies approved Renzi's flagship electoral reform law, a law that would see Italy's voting system overhauled and also significantly reform the Italian Senate. Several days later he approved the auctioning of a large number of luxury cars that were used to transport heads of state, as he felt they were an unnecessary use of government money. The cars included 9 Maseratis, 2 Jaguars, and various other cars such as BMWs and Alfa Romeos. Out of the 1,500 cars put up for sale, 170 sold immediately over eBay. In April, as part of his industrial reforms, Renzi forced the chief executives of Italy's biggest state-owned companies, including Eni, Terna, Finmeccanica, Enel and Poste Italiane, to resign. He subsequently appointed women to the majority of new positions, making it the first time any woman had served as a chief executive of a state-owned company in Italy. Foreign Affairs. On March 2, 2014, following Russian military intervention in Ukraine, Renzi accused President Vladimir Putin of having committed an unacceptable violation. On March 19, during a speech in the Chamber of Deputies, Renzi stated that the Crimean status referendum was illegal and that the G8 countries must start cooperating to solve the crisis and prevent a return to the Cold War. On 4 and 5 June, he subsequently participated in the G7 summit in Brussels, the first one held after the suspension of Russia from the G8 following the annexation of Crimea in March. On June 9, Renzi traveled to Hanoi, Vietnam to meet with President Truong Tan Sang and Prime Minister Nguyen Tan Dung, and sign economic treaties worth some $5 billion. He was the first Italian Prime Minister to officially visit Vietnam since 1973, when diplomacy first began between Italy and North Vietnam. During the visit Renzi placed a wreath in the mausoleum of the former North Vietnamese President Ho Chi Minh. On June 11 Renzi met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, who congratulated him for the important reforms undertaken by his government. Xi also stated that China would continue cooperation with Italy ahead of Expo 2015 in Milan. 2014 European election. In the European Parliament election held on May 25, 2014, the first national election Renzi had faced since becoming Prime Minister, his Democratic Party won 40.8% of the vote with 11,203,231 votes, becoming by far the largest party in the country with 31 MEPs. The PD won the most votes of any single party across the whole of the European Union, and overtook Germany's Christian Democratic Union to become the largest parliamentary group. Political views. Renzi has regularly advocated for a generational replacement of the current Italian ruling class. He also supports various battles to reduce the cost of politics, including the practical elimination of one of the 2 houses of the Italian parliament, the abolition of public financing for political parties, the abolition of annuities, direct election of politicians by citizens, and the deletion of state contributions to political party newspapers. Renzi has also in the past stated that he is in favor of civil partnerships and that, from a political perspective, marriage should not be viewed as a sacrament. Renzi has occasionally been compared to former British Prime Minister Tony Blair for his political views. Renzi himself has previously claimed to be a supporter of Blair's ideology of the Third Way, regarding an objective to synthesize liberal economics and left-wing social policies. Personal life. Matteo Renzi is married to a teacher, Agnese Landini, with whom he has 2 sons, Francesco and Emmanuel, and a daughter, Esther. Renzi is a regular Mass-goer and was active in a Catholic branch of the Scouts. Cabinet. The Renzi cabinet is the 63rd cabinet of the Italian Republic and was sworn in on February 22, 2014. The cabinet is composed of members of the Democratic Party, New Centre-Right, Civic Choice, the Union of the Centre and 3 independents. The cabinet is Italy's youngest government to date, with an average age of 47. In addition, it is also the first in which the number of female ministers is equal to the number of male ministers, excluding the Prime Minister. References. External links. Official website of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, Renzi's personal website, Renzi on his party's website.